So, I remember the first time that I saw a caterpillar when I was a young child. And I also remember the first time that I saw a butterfly. What I never could understand, though, was how the caterpillar became the butterfly. The magic seemed to be the cocoon. Throughout the pandemic, we have been using the term cocoon a lot. So all of these years later, I try to figure out the mystery of what exactly happens in the cocoon that would cause or enable the caterpillar to transform into something so beautiful. And was it really as magical or as beautiful as it seemed? So the answer was yes, it actually was magical. But the answer is also no, it is not beautiful. Not by a long shot. So as it turns out, the cocoon is actually a very bleak place for the caterpillar. The time in the cocoon is filled with confinement and with waiting, with isolation and with darkness. What I actually learned is that the caterpillar has to nearly self-destruct inside of the cocoon. That the caterpillar's body has to turn into gooey mush and feed upon its deconstructed self in order to grow and to change and to become something different. And it's only after that near total annihilation that the new growth can begin. No one ever really talks about that part of the process. We pay attention to the beginning, we pay attention to the end, but we typically glance over the messy middle, if you will, the entire stage of becoming. So knowing this, it came to make a lot of sense that we called what we've been doing over the past year and a half cocooning. For many people, there were times, and there were a lot of times, when things felt hard and dark and scary and messy. When we felt alone. And in those times, I would think of the caterpillar and the butterfly for inspiration. Because it seemed to me that the messiness and the hardships and the abundance of solitude or separation could inevitably cause us to grow and to become better and more beautiful versions of ourselves. Some may have hoped for personal change to occur within their own cocoon, that they would become kinder, more appreciative, more patient, more forgiving. Some may have hoped that they would come to engage with others differently because we would appreciate each other more once we were out. That forevermore we would recognize the value of a smile, of a hug, of a dinner out together with friends, comfortably passing food between us. Some may have hoped to emerge with more clarity, with an enhanced sense of purpose, with new and better habits and ways of being, with different values guiding us. But how many of us sit here tonight feeling like we began to emerge a bit this past June from our cocoons? And I'm not so sure that we're all really feeling like those butterflies. Did the time in your cocoon change you? Did you emerge a better version of yourself? Or do you secretly wonder if you missed out on what feels like a lifetime opportunity for significant and meaningful change? It's with these questions in mind that I turn to Jewish wisdom. And one of the most important scenes and stories from the Talmud. It's about a man named Shimon Bar Yochai. He also happens to be a rabbi, And the scene starts out with Shimon and 3 of his other buddies, and they're sitting around and they're talking. There's Yehuda, there's Yossi, there's Shimon, and they're all in conversation, and there seems to be one outlier, and his name is Yehuda. So come with me into the story. The story is told in the Talmud that Yehuda starts up a conversation, and he decides to go to the political realm. He praises the Roman leadership because of all that they had done for the infrastructure in the land. He shared that they've been making highways and building bridges and even building bathhouses. No one responded. They all went silent. But Shimon Bar Yochai, he challenged these sentiments. And he said, yes, you are right. The Roman leaders did all of these things, but you know what? They did it for selfish reasons. He went on to explain how the leaders themselves were served by what they had built. And so Yehuda, you remember the outlier that I mentioned earlier. Well, it turned out he wasn't particularly trustworthy. And he went straight back to the Roman authorities, and he reported the conversation. The consequence for the criticism of Shimon Bar Yochai was execution. He was to be put to death. So as soon as word got back, and Shimon Bar Yochai learned of the plan to kill him, he quickly ran out of town. He took his son Eleazar, and they found shelter and safety in a place that was actually a cave. At the cave there was water via a well, and there was a carob tree which they could eat from. And the 2 guys spent their days and their nights studying Torah and Jewish wisdom and also praying. They stayed there for 12 years. After 12 years, someone came knocking at their cave door with a message which was this: the emperor had died, the edict was therefore annulled, therefore it was safe for them to come out of isolation. So what do you think happened next? Well, think about what you imagined that you would do when you came out of quarantine. Think about your hopes and dreams. Maybe you imagined seeing the people that you loved, of appreciating family and neighbors, engaging with the outside world with wonder. Well, I'm sure that Shimon had those very same dreams and visions. But when he and his son Eleazar started to walk out into the world, they actually started to judge people. And they started to judge them pretty harshly. They saw things through a critical lens. And the Talmud tells us that wherever they looked, things would burn up. So at this point, God understandably gets angry. And God turns to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and he says to he and his son Eleazar, did you really emerge from the cave in order to be destructive? And then God sends them back to the cave. Shimon and his son went back to the cave for another year, a 13th year in isolation. But this time when they emerged, they were able to see the blessings. They became agents of healing and forces for good in the world. I share this story from the Talmud with you tonight because lately I've been thinking that we might be heading back into our cocoons or our caves to some degree. And because I've been thinking about how this reprise, if it has to happen, could serve us. Might it provide us with another opportunity to grow, to improve, to reconsider, to recommit, to reimagine who we might be and what our world could be. Even if we're not going back into our caves, though, The truth is that the high holidays are intended to give us this very same opportunity. Our tradition invites us to take 10 days and to use them for growth and for change and for transformation. To ask ourselves the big questions. Are we the people that God created us to be? Are we the people that we aspire to be? These high holidays, even during a pandemic, can assure us that there are unknowns and uncertainties, but there are many things that we know to be true. First, that the years of our lives are limited, so the time for becoming that person that we aspire to be, or to do the things that we are meant to do, that time, my friends, is now. Don't push it off. And these days are also a reminder that we are all capable of change. That in any moment we have the capacity to begin anew, to become a butterfly. And that possibility and potential is also magical. We have all survived the unimaginable. And so much of what awaits us is beyond our control. But between tonight and 10 days from now, when the gates close and the sun sets, and Yom Kippur closes out the high holidays, 5782, a new year will begin. What work do we need to do in our lives? What dreaming and imagining do we need to do? What relationships do we need to tend to? What commitments do we need to make? And what intentions do we need to set? So that when we emerge from these high holidays and from this pandemic, please God, we will be able to see the blessings and we will feel ready to soar like the beautiful and magical creatures that we were created by God to be. Shana Tova.